and we were supposed to have actually moved back. We're from the States, so we were supposed to move stateside. Because of all the COVID stuff, it got delayed until October. So our next station will be in California.
Okay, perfect.
And
are you originally from the States?
That move is happening, right? That got delayed, and now you were actually given a timeline in terms of when that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Did you?
So it was completely in limbo for a while, and then we decided, or they told us you can move in October, and so Forest leadership out there agreed that October would be satisfactory. Like we didn't have to try to like scramble and be able to move once they changed the order in the States for when you can move different places and everything a couple weeks ago. So we didn't know if it was going to be we need to get the house packed up this week and go, or some time. So we have some time. And yeah, to answer your question, we're from the States. And so this has been like a nice tour. We were really pushing to get another year in Ottawa, but it just wasn't in the cards. So
it's been 2 years.
We were 2 years here.
Yeah. Well, I think we're live on Facebook, so let's get started, because you actually started getting into some of the where are you from, and I want to make sure that everybody actually hears this. So for everybody watching today, or for those of you joining, welcome to the Command Post, Tales from the Bathroom. I'm Stephanie Shapiro, COO of the Together We Stand Foundation. We are a foundation that honors and supports military families. Today in the bathroom, I have with me Joe Haytaoglu and Amber Poole. I said that right, Joe? Haytaoglu.
Haytaoglu.
Okay. Haytaoglu. Next time.
Yes.
Amber Poole. And today we're going to be talking about raising kids in the military, so raising military brats. So welcome to Joe and Amber. Thank you so much for, number one, joining us on the show today, and number two, joining me in the bathroom, beverage in hand, on this lovely Monday. So cheers to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So let's start off today, before we get into actually talking about raising kids, why don't we give everybody a little bit of a background in terms of what your military family looks like. So, and one of the reasons that I love having Joe on the show today and Amber is that their military families look completely different from one another. So I like the fact that we're looking at people who have completely different experiences, but might actually share some of the same types of experiences that they've had. So we'll get to see that. So Joe, why don't you tell us about your military family, how long you and Hawk have been together, and what you guys look like today.
Okay, so hi, I am Maura Joe Haytaoglu. I go by Joe. I am a military spouse. I've been with my husband for 23 years. He has been serving for 30 years in the military. We met on a random blind date way back in 1997. And the rest is history. We ended up marrying in 99, had our first child in 2001. So my son Drew is 19, and we were in Moose Jaw at the time. And then we had our second child, Hannah, who was born in 2003. So they're 2 years apart. And she is 17, going into her final year of high school. So we moved to Trenton, where we currently are, 16 years ago, actually. And so unusual for most military families. But my husband, in his job, has been able to sort of move around the base in different positions within the military, and he's actually currently over in Germany. So we've been without him for 2 weeks. He gets home on Thursday, and we talked about reintegration last time when we were talking. And so we're actually going to be experiencing that, because when he comes home, it'll be 2 weeks not around. And so I have to pack up the kids and leave the house so he can have the house, and then we'll trade off, and then he'll go to the
reintegration in COVID.
Yes. Yes. So very different, right? So the kids and I have to make plans separately. So in raising the kids, they know that it's sort of primary unit, the four of us, and we're just adjusting as things are happening. My son is back home from college right now. Obviously, my daughter's around. They're both working out of the house as well right now. So it's just been sort of, we were talking about this before, Stephanie, that, you know, I remember the days, and I remember some of the more seasoned military spouses saying, enjoy the days when they're young. And I'm thinking, you have no idea what hell I'm going through right now. I've done my job. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And now I'm thinking, gosh, I just wish I had somebody to talk to, because they're busy running their own lives. And I do get 5 minutes now and then, and a quick hug and an I love you, and they're out the door with their friends again. So, or they're off to work.
Graced with 5 minutes, right?
Right, graced with 5. Yeah, what do you want? Yeah, okay. Can we discuss this? Right.
And Joe, so your husband is Air Force, and
Yes.
I want to bring up something that you told us about last week, which I think so many people think there's this misconception that military spouses, when they're apart, it's because of a stereotypical deployment where somebody's gone for 6, 7, 8 months at a time.
Mm.
You're living what I think is a unique situation, but perhaps more common than people realize, where your husband is gone like 250 days of the year, 280 days of the year, but he's back and forth constantly. So you don't have the 8-month-long absences, but you constantly have these 10-day, 2-week absences.
Correct. So it's like, I say, I feel like a hotel because I'm a revolving door, right? Like, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. The house is booked, we're not booked. And especially now with COVID, having to adjust everything, we're having to figure out, like, because we do have a cottage that we can go to, or our trailer. So it's basically, I'm going to be at the trailer. I will return at this time. You need to leave by that time, but I've got to prepare. And I have to tell you, I am not a good housewife. I'm not a good, like, stay-at-home mom. That's not my jam. My jam is not to serve my family hand and foot, although I love them. I do. So my job is to make sure his car is filled with gas, because he can't fill up his car. My job is to make sure his food is or groceries are bought, and he can make his own food. So I'm just like, I don't do that stuff. So now it's an extra job for me right now. And
Amber, so you also have an interesting military experience unique from people I've had on the show before. So tell us a little bit about your family, but what's interesting is that you are actually a military family that stems from the United States. So tell us about what your military family looks like.
So my military family, my husband and I met in 2003. We both attended the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, graduated together, and then waited a couple years to get married to see how life was outside of the bubble of school. And then did our separate assignments, decided we were going to get married. So I did 5 years active duty. Then we knew we were going to get married and start a family. I chose to separate, and he stayed in. We didn't have kids. I worked until we had our son. So from 2010 to almost the end of 2012. And then we have 3 kids, 3, 5, and 7. So we had 2012, 14.
I was thinking about it.
So we have 3 little ones at home. And right now we're in Ottawa. We're on an exchange from the United States. So my husband is up here as an exchange officer, and we're getting to enjoy all that Canada has to offer, knowing that, it's finite and we have to go back, but it'll be nice.
You've been in Canada now for 2 years. Where is home in the States?
Home for me is Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. So we're not too far from there. And then for my husband,
Canada, you were where?
I'm sorry?
Before Canada, you were where?
Oh, before Canada, we were in Colorado Springs was our prior assignment. So we are also Air Force. So
okay.
My husband, well, now my husband is Space Force, since that's the new terms. But so he's in the snazzy new Space Force that we have down there. So
that sounds very fancy.
Yeah. It's
I'm being told by my CEO that the acoustics in my bathroom sucks. I just moved to my new home 3 days ago, and I'm being told that the acoustics suck. So I'm going to have to talk to my contractors about the fact that they clearly didn't know I was hosting shows from the bathroom. But I'm sorry for the echo. You'll let me know if I need to adjust the sound if you can't hear me at all, because he's sending me lots of messages. Your acoustics suck. So sorry. My CEO also wants to know, what is your favorite part of Canada?
My favorite part of Canada?
Having now been here for
oh gosh. I just love it's there's so
he's giving me options. He's giving me maple syrup, healthcare, or beer. But I think maybe there's another option there that you can go.
Beer is delicious. And so is the maple syrup. So that's a toss up right there. But I think like just it's just so it's almost, to be honest, it was a bizarre experience coming up here, because my first assignment, I was stationed in Japan, and this is kind of getting off on a tangent, but everything is so different than what you're used to. You can't read any of the signs, you can't communicate effectively with anyone right off the bat. And so moving here, everything felt very similar, but at the same time, completely different. So that was a big adjustment at first, but I think just generally I love, especially in Ottawa, especially with the ages that my kids are, there's an abundance of things to do outdoors. And that's what we loved about Colorado. And I think that's what I love so much about Canada, is like just the natural beauty of everything. Right. And I do think that the stereotype that people are polite is very, very correct. It's I think
true, right? We are very polite people. Like I noticed that when I've traveled to other countries, and I miss the politeness of home. I miss that just common courtesy that people seem to have here.
Yes, like it's just, everybody is always very pleasant, and it's right. Like you said, very respectful of each other. Like it's never I don't know, it's refreshing. It's just like when you go out, I feel like in the States, sometimes I'm the one that's like, oh, sorry, and then we moved up here and I'm like, oh, everybody says that. Oh my gosh, this is great. So it's been really pleasant. It's been a really fun experience for us.
Well, we're going to be sad to see you go in October, but hopefully you'll come back and visit, and maybe you'll even do a show with us from the States and kind of let us know how you're settling, and we'll pick another topic to talk about. So.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay, good. Well, let's delve into raising children in the military. And I love the fact that both of you are at very different stages of raising children in the military, because I would imagine that the experience changes depending on the age of your kid and the amount of kids you have at any time, because 3 under a certain age, or although Joe, yours are pretty close in age together, so you had kind of babies together at the same time. Let's talk about, first and foremost, how do you explain, I'm going to say fathers in this case, because it's both of your partners that are in the military currently. How do you explain your partner's jobs to your kids and what that looks like? How do you, is it just sort of run of the mill, daddy's a dentist, daddy's a this, daddy's in the Air Force, or do you kind of explain the uniqueness of what their job is? To either one of you.
I'll let you take that one, Amber, if you want.
Okay, sure. My kids are kind of too young to conceptualize it yet. I think now my oldest is finally wrapping his mind around what it means. And I think that comes from us having to move frequently now as he's entering the school realm. Mm-hmm. So now he's realizing, wait, most families don't move this much. Like, how come we're doing this? But they know that, daddy's in the military, daddy goes to work every morning. Like, they understand that. They understand, like, when he has, because he also has, pre-COVID, was traveling quite frequently. And so it was very much, they understand the role of, like, dad travels for work, and, this is what he does. And it's never really been it's just kind of his life. Like, I feel like it's just, like, it's always been that way since they've been around. So it's just kind of like, they don't know anything different, so it's not odd or unusual. But like, now my oldest is starting to delve into, like, well, what exactly do you do, Dad? Now he has the interest level of like, when you go to work, what are you working on? Like, he wants kind of to talk to my husband more about that. Whereas before it was kind of like, yeah, okay, but I think overall it's just kind of been like, Daddy's in the military, we move a lot. Sometimes he's gone a lot, and kind of that's just how it is. This is our little family unit, and we just kind of keep going. Like, we do our thing.
Right. And Joe, what about you? When your kids were young, maybe versus now.
Yeah, I think it's exactly the same. It's really no different than somebody who is, for me anyway, is somebody who is married to somebody who's in the oil fields, or somebody who is a long haul trucker, or somebody who is, corporate and having to be away from home and then come home only on weekends. That's sort of how it's been. My kids, are they proud of their dad? Sure, but we're in a military town too, right? Mm-hmm. Trenton is primarily military, so they go to school with other kids that are military. So there hasn't been really that kind of, how do you explain what your dad does? He's a pilot, he flies a plane, he's away a lot.
Right.
That's sort of, and kids are very, very simple in their thinking process when they're young. So we didn't ever complicate it for them. What we did was we were like, Dad's going to be gone these days, and likely, and we say likely because sometimes that changes, going to be home on this date, because that moves and changes. They've gotten used to the fact of, like I said last time, my daughter came to me on a Wednesday or something and said, well, can Dad drive me? And I said, he's been gone for 4 days. He left on Sunday, right? Like, she's like, oh, I didn't even know, because they're sort of used to him either being here or not being here. And we just function as we function, and he comes and goes, and we love him dearly. Like I said, the 3 months he was home during COVID, the beginning of COVID, was the longest time we've had together since we've been married in the last 23 years.
That's wild. That's such a crazy concept. And did you survive it? Was it like, yay, we're all together, or was it like, go back on your trip?
Well, it sort of depended on the day. There were some days I was asking him when he was flying again. It was great. It was a time that my son returning. So imagine a 19-year-old going off to school to do his first year of his degree, and then having to stop school soon, come home, and all of a sudden, Mom and Dad's rules when you've been solo for 8-9 months. That was an adjustment, and I was grateful, but I think my son was grateful to have Dad around at that time, because it was sort of their time to bond. He really, really had a hard time adjusting because he's a social kid, and he's also an actor, and so he had to give up acting when he went off to school, but that was his livelihood. So when he started looking for work, he was really struggling because there wasn't much that he didn't have the Tim Hortons job or the McDonald's job or all of that to build up a resume. He had, I've been on this movie set and I've been on, so he didn't have those backgrounds. And I don't know, the kids are very, very, very resilient, very positive, and like I was discussing before we went on, they've gotten so used to coming and going of not necessarily our family, because like I said, we've been here for 16 years, but our entire neighborhoods change over almost every
because you're
4
a military
years.
community.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so they've gotten used to creating relationships, and social media has made it easier for them to sustain those relationships, right? Which might be very, very different than years ago when it was into handwritten letters, right? Or phone calls. But the kids seem to have their own friends, and they've got military friends, and they've got non-military friends, and they're just way more positive than I think sometimes the media portrays what an army brat or a military brat's like. Is it tough? Yeah. But you know what? They're so resilient, and they're like, okay, this is just what we do. This is what we've always done.
Right. I have, just really quickly, I have shouts out here from individuals who are watching. We have people watching from Toronto. We have friends from Halifax, from Belleville, from Horton Township. So hello to all of you. And I'm actually getting a question in here right now. Amber, maybe a little bit harder for you to answer just because your kids are only on the cusp of understanding. But I have a question here saying, when your husbands have deployed or have been working, have your kids ever asked you about the possibility of danger as they understand the job?
So I think it's very different for me, if I can answer this. The Army is an infantry, very, very different from what Air Force is. I think we've always sort of protected them from what exactly happens. And I love my husband for that, because he doesn't bring work home. He doesn't sit and talk about the details of what happens. So his deployments over to Kuwait, when he's going over there and having to refuel the jets. He doesn't talk about stuff like that, because I think I don't even know what he does. To be honest, I don't know what squadron he belongs to. I don't know. I just know when he's here and he's not. And part of it is that it's okay for me not to know every detail, because it's not my job. My job.
Is it a protective mechanism? Is it
so.
Like, right?
I think so. Like in hindsight, like if I'm examining it, sure, maybe. But for him, it's also, if I don't know what happens, if anything goes on and people say, we are very careful to make sure that we don't say where he is, what he's doing, things like this. And he doesn't really talk about it. And the reason he doesn't is because the less information I have, then if anything ever happens, God forbid, terrorists or whatever, and they say, oh, you know, where's your husband at? Or that I honestly, I don't know. And I don't know what he does. I do know the basics, but I can't tell you who exactly he's flying with and where he's going. And it's just something we've come to an understanding over 23 years of being together. Now, don't get me wrong. When he was first flying him, I grilled him. Who are you flying with? What are they like? What are their family situation? You know, like everything. But it was a trust thing. And now it's just, hey, where you're leaving? Okay. And he calls me when he's there. But we really don't dive into the details of what he's doing, because that's his job, and his job doesn't require me to know everything.
Right. And Amber, as your eldest is starting to ask questions about what your husband does and what his job looks like, has he ever asked you about dangers of the job, or has that not registered yet because he's young?
You know, I think for us it's kind of different, because I also lived that life. So I'm not really, it sounds mean saying this, but I'm not that interested. Like when he tells me, I'm like, get it. I know what you're doing. Don't need any more detail. You know, so like for our kids, I just think they don't register danger because dad's just like, they're too little to know really why he may be deployed or what exactly the purpose of that is. And like you said, I think we're on the cusp maybe of that with my oldest, but he's not there. So, I mean, like same thing when my husband comes home, like sometimes I get the same answer literally every day. How was work today? It was fine. You know, and like, we just don't like.
My daughter, when I asked her about school, how was school? Fine. Right.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like he doesn't like, we don't talk shop, I guess. Like, it's just like, you know, like he doesn't, and I guess, especially because our kids are young too, it's like, there's so many other things to discuss. Like, okay, well, Warren has this, or, you know, Danny has this, or, you know, we have so many other things to tackle in that short amount of time.
Right.
Like, with the kids and you know, like when he gets home, it's usually like play with the kids and then, you know, bedtime
right
starts. So as far as like the danger of the job, I don't think it registers yet with my kids. And I just don't think I think like any job, there's dangers inherently in a lot of professions. And I just don't think you dwell on them. It's just part of the job. And you it is what it is basically. And like, you just go for it.
just so I know the context in some of the questions that I'm going to ask, because I know about Joe's situation in terms of her past, her current experiences and how her husband travels. Have you had experiences with deployments with your husband, or is he sort of on again, off again situation? What's the travel schedule?
His are a little. He's went once so far. His aren't as quite as common as some of the other career fields. So it's not like he's not a flyer, so it's not rotational like that. So we're fortunate in that aspect. Where his travel comes into play is a lot of the temporary duty travels. I can't remember what the Canadians call them, TDs, I think maybe. But that's where a lot of our trips come up. Is just it's always like back to back to back, or like these things. But yeah, his deployments are not as frequent as other career fields, so we're lucky with that.
Okay. Now, with both of the travel schedules, does it ever feel like single parenting?
Always. Actually, no. For me, and this is in no way disrespectful to somebody who has lost their partner, but sometimes I feel like a single person or a widow who cannot date. Right. And that's out of no disrespect to people that have lost their partners. It's hard because you are doing everything on your own for a majority of it. Like we talked last time, it's making the rules, doing the things. And I think the hardest thing for us was the constant, oh, I'm leaving on Tuesday. No, wait, that's Thursday. And I'm leaving at noon. No, wait, it's now 7:00 at night. So I was constantly having to kind of roll with it.
Right.
And it was frustrating because, okay, I had to have the kids here and I had to have the kids there. And I think what I ended up doing is, because I don't have family close by, my family's all in Manitoba. My husband's family's in Toronto, which is 2 hours away. So my help came in neighbors. My help came from friends that I had created, where we would swap. I'll take care of your kids this night if you can take care of my kids this night, because we've got this going on. Or, hey, can you drive Drew to here and I'll pick up Maggie from here and take Hannah there. Like, it was coordinating schedules with other families and other wives and other neighbors that had children in similar activities, versus actually ever relying on him being home to do any of that.
So and I think completely different support system outside of your family, right?
Exactly. And you had to ask. And I think that's the biggest thing, and the biggest tip I can give to moms with young children, or moms that have their kids, because you want your kids to be in activities. I tried to find activities that both my kids could do at the same time. Like, so if they were both going to do soccer, we're going to try and find soccer teams at the same time. If they're going to do gymnastics, they're going to try and do gymnastics. So finding something that they could do together, because that was one less thing for me to have to run to the hockey rink and the swimming pool, right? Like, right. And be split. I sort of geared them when they were younger into things that I could make sure they could do at the same time. And of course, as they got older, then we did things that would be conducive to their needs and their wants, but also making sure that we had the infrastructure in place to allow them to do that. Because there's no point telling them, yeah, you can do that, and then say, oh, sorry, I can't get you to that.
Right. And Amber, what about you with your husband's schedule? Does the support come from within the family, or does it feel like single parenting? And if it's single parenting and you're moving constantly, where does the support come from?
I would agree. I think you build your own community every time you move. And I think that's really, my parents are 9 hours away. It's across the border, which, that's not very helpful on a regular basis. And anywhere else, right. Anywhere else we've lived, we've never really had family that we could call, but I've been very fortunate enough, especially like when my children were babies, to make really good friends where, I had an emergency when my daughter was born and I ended up getting stuck in the hospital, and they released my daughter, and one of my friends didn't even hesitate, came over, fed my newborn baby in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you learn very quickly, like you said, to ask for help and realize if I don't foster a community for myself, then I'm the one left high and dry. So even those uncomfortable, awkward situations, the social situations where you're the only person that maybe doesn't know somebody in a room, you have to find that courage to be like, hey, I'm Amber. How are you? What are you doing? You know, like, and you learn very quickly to put yourself out there, and, you know, not everybody loves you, and that's okay. And you learn to deal with that rejection too. But I think it helps you build a community that really allows you to get through that. And I would say, like, for my situation, it's a lot of solo parenting. And I think, you know, it's good. Like, I'm bad cop. My husband's good cop. I know that. Like, he comes home, it's good time, Charlie. Mom's there. It's, you know, this is your schedule. You don't do this, you know, like, we need to do that. And I'm the disciplinarian just by nature of circumstance. But I do think I feel very fortunate, at least, that I know, like, you know, I know that he's taking care of us. And I also know that, like, if he could be home with us, he would. It's not like he's choosing to stay away. And I think that the combination of a community and knowing that, you know, this is your job, it's not like you don't like us and you're volunteering for all this stuff and want to be away from us, makes it okay. And you kind of just slough your way through it then.
Right. It's so interesting to me because I think about individuals who look to make friends at a certain age in life. You know, I was out in Edmonton at one point with Rick, my CEO. We were visiting a military base, and one of the moms said, you know, there's no kindergarten for 30-year-olds. It's not so easy when you're 30 years old. But and for some people, just in general, meeting new people is difficult. You know, it's hard to put yourself out there. But I never really looked at it from meeting people is a bit of a lifeline. Meeting people is your support network. So you just do it. So does it get easier?
It's very awkward. Like, a lot of times you're like, oh my, it really is like those memes you see where you're like, you're drinking coffee, I'm drinking coffee. Would you like to be my friend? Like, you're kind of like
so much in common.
You know?
It's true. When we first moved to Trenton and the kids were 3 and 1, Hawk was gone within a week of us being here, and I had the kids at a park, and a girl who moved in just behind us, and I saw her at the, like, out my back window, and then I saw her at the park, and I'm like, oh, hey, I just noticed that you moved in. Do you want to be my friend?
Exactly.
Wow, you're really strange. And I said, thank God. She said, sure, because we're like best of friends now. She's, you know, she's still living in Trenton too. But I think back to that and I thought, if somebody did that to me, how would I have reacted? But because we're in a military community, I get it, right?
Right.
However, if you weren't in a military community, you might have gone, hey, I just met this wacko in the park.
Right.
Came up and said, she wants to be my friend.
Go for a spa day and we met 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Exactly.
We talked 2 weeks ago, we had Kim Mills on the show, we had Joe with us, we talked about reintegration. And when we talked about reintegration, we talked a lot about from the spouse perspective, from the relationship point of view. Talk to me about what that looks like with kids, what it's like to, you know, for dad to be away either on a very regular basis, constantly in and out, or for a long period of time. And bringing him back in, and what does that look like from a discipline perspective, from a relationship perspective, from a, you know, fitting into the family perspective, from the kids' point of view, not necessarily from the spouse point of view.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
With young kids, I would say it's definitely, like I was alluding to, like, you become the enforcer, basically. Like, you're responsible for all of their discipline, making sure they're using your manners and all that stuff. And so whenever my husband would return, it was like, you know, he just wanted to be fun dad and hang out with the kids and do that stuff, which fantastic. You know, they wanted him back. You know, they were so excited and, you know, like, he's home and this is great. But then it would also, I found that I would later have to tell him, like, you know, I almost feel like you give them like a debrief when they get home, like, hey, here's what we've been working on with the kids so that you know, because this is going to be
So
coming up.
potty trained, so and so, like
Right, exactly. Like, hey, we've been having this issue with him. Like, when you guys are playing, like, we're not doing this. And we've had an issue with them throwing things over here. So this game isn't allowed anymore. And I feel like just making sure that I always felt like it was like we needed time. Like, yes, they had fun together. And then, like, once the kids were in bed, I was like, I think we need to talk and get on the same page again as far as what are the issues with kids and how are we handling like the disciplinary issues that come up or anything like that. And then I also think from like, it's always nice when he gets home because then they're very excited to see him. But then I think that wears off. Like, and then it's like, where's mom, you know, and you're the default parent. You're the one that's there, the constant. So then you get, you know, and I think sometimes I'm conscious of the fact that I know he doesn't care, but I think, you know, it also is, you know, my job to kind of say, hey, dad's home. Why don't you go ask him? Or, you know, hey, why doesn't dad do that with you? To get them used to, again, realizing like, oh yeah, he is home. Like, let me go find him. But I would say the hardest part is always like with at least the little ones, was being like, here's what's changed in our routine. Here's what's changed in our behaviors. And here's how we're addressing them. So I need you to make sure that you're doing the same things I'm doing, because otherwise they're not getting a consistent message. And I think that's usually our biggest.
And did you find that your husband, because I've heard so many mixed stories about this, did your husband in your case kind of get on board with that? Or was he sort of like, let me do my own thing, I'm a parent too, you know, or did he kind of gently reintegrate back into parenting?
I will give my husband props for this. Like, I feel like when he's at work, and when he's home, he's dad. Like, he walks in and it's like instantly he knows, I know even if he's had a really long day, like, you're dad until they go to bed. And so he does a very good job of making sure that he's there for them. I mean, nobody's perfect. We still have our, you know, spats about that, or, you know, like, we will disagree on things, especially if he's been gone for a while, where I think something is a big deal and he'll come home and be like, they're just being kids, you know? And then I feel like my head spins around. I'm like, what do you mean you haven't been dealing with this for 3 weeks? You know, like, so, I mean, we still have those things to work through, but I would say he does realize that, you know, they are little. And when I'm home, like, this is my finite time. I need to make sure I use this to build relationships with them and everything.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, I'm curious to know, because you've been through so many stages in ages, what reintegration on a consistent basis looked like from early years to into the teen years, and how they adjusted to listening to your father and seeing their father as an authoritative, assuming as an authoritative figure as well as you during all of this.
Yeah, so I echo everything that Amber is saying there. That's exactly what it was like when they were little. And Hawk is a phenomenal father. Like, he is, but he wasn't patient with them. He would lose his temper quite often with them, in the sense of just kind of like frustrated, and because he didn't understand. But like, just some behaviors and stuff, especially when we went through, say, I don't know, 9 years to 16 years old, like that stage. and so it was more of the puberty and more of the, you know, handoff. It's your turn now. It's your turn. Hawk's been fortunate that all of his times away, he's been able to do video chat through Facebook Messenger or whatever. And so I will say to him, you know, Hannah's having a rough day. You might want to give her a call. Or Drew's not doing so well. You might want to give him a call. So I really try and engage him from afar so that he's checking in with them, but it's not coming from me saying, hey, you should call your dad, or hey, dad's going to call you.
Right.
I just get Hawk to call them randomly based on, like, I debrief him when he's overseas on what's happening, but you might want to give them a call. And the kids just have a different connection with him. He was the fun guy when they were little. Then he became the equal partner, and now he's the wise old one, right? Like, I'm still that default parent. It doesn't matter what I do. I'm the embarrassing one, the one that rolls the eyes, the one that I know when they have their own children, they'll appreciate me. But right now I kind of feel like shit. I'm not gonna lie. So it doesn't matter what I do. I'm damned if I do. I'm damned if I don't. And I think the other thing is we have a very equal partnership when it comes to parenting, when it comes to just household stuff, when it comes to, we like each other, so we're kind to each other. And I think our children mimic that behavior. And
That's
so, and we, kindness matters in our house. And if you're going to be nasty and mean, we're going to call you out on it, regardless of whether it's me doing it or the kids doing it. And I think you model that behavior that you want to see from your kids in relationships, and they're just following suit. And so if I'm good in a relationship with my husband, they're going to be good in a relationship with me and him.
Good. Wonderful. I love that. I think that's universal, military or not. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, because I'm going to continue to make sure I apply that to my little ones with my husband. I have 2 more questions. Although I have to tell you, funny enough, and I don't know if anybody will get this, but Amber, simply because you said Space Force, I'm getting inundated with like Steve Carell comments and like Trump comments and like, what does Space Force really look like? So you should know there's like a whole stream of conversation about this. I'm going to be mindful of time here. We're at 8:40, but I have 2 more questions to ask. One perhaps on the negative side and one very much on the positive side. So let's start with the negative one. What has been, in your opinion, in your experiences, the hardest part about being a parent in a military family? Either of you.
We're just hitting it right now, and it's the leaving friendships behind. We're just in that phase of military life now where, my oldest is starting to realize, and they're good about it, but it doesn't make it sting any less for you when you're moving and they're like, I loved our school so much, or like I always feel guilty as we're uprooting them, and I know they'll be fine, but it's like it probably makes my heart break more than theirs, but watching them say those goodbyes and watching them realize, like, I'm not going to school at this school next year, or I'm never gonna see my friend again. It's just, that has been crushing. Or when they're like, remember that house that, I had that room in that I loved? I really miss that, or, like a comment like that. And you're just like, oh, I know, sweetheart. But I will say, silver lining to that, it's been very good. We never belittle that for them and be like, you'll be fine. Like, we're just moving, you'll be fine. And I always tell them, I'm like, moms feel sad too. It's hard saying goodbyes, but it's a new adventure. And we're very lucky we get to do this. Like, we get to go and create a new story for ourselves. But we do take time to recognize, like, yeah, that sucks. Like, I don't want to say goodbye either. Like, I really like it here. I don't want to move again. And right now, that's been the biggest negative, is just kind of like that. I feel like it's almost like a grieving stage. You realize, like, this, and especially if it's a good assignment, like, you realize, like, the sweet spot in our life is like disappearing soon. So I would say that's our biggest negative challenge.
And Joe, what's been the toughest part of raising kids in the military for you?
I think having choice, right? Having choice about where we live, choice about those friendships, choice about activities, because we are limited to single parents being able to run the show. Me having choice in my life, right? And because my life did focus on my children, at the later stages, it becomes very, and don't get me wrong, I've got a great business that I have, but my focus has always been primarily my children, and now they're grown adults, and now I'm at that empty nest, now what stage, right? And having to,
which I want to do a whole show about, by the way. So we're going to be doing that, and you're going to be coming back and talking to me about that. So,
yeah. So I think I think the toughest part, I would agree, is the friendships. We're not the ones moving, but we're watching lots of friends move around us, and our kids, hey, can I go and visit Tanner down in the States? Hey, can I go and visit, you know, somebody over in Germany? Hey, can I go and visit? And it, you know, as a parent, all you say is maybe someday, but you have no idea when that someday is going to happen. And so you're just there to always catch the fall and disappointment of that recreating friendships and going through the emotions. But at the same time, those moves and those finding people means that they've got lots of good friends. You know how some people go to school from kindergarten on up and they're best of friends and best of friends and best. I find that our children don't. I find that they've just got lots of groups of people with one special friend in each place or at each time of their life.
Right.
And that's what is important to them.
And now on the flip side, instead of looking at the negative, every family that I have spoken to, unequivocally, every family that has a child in the military that I've spoken to has said, my child is so resilient. And you don't hear that. I mean, being a parent myself and being in a group of moms and knowing tons of their kids, I don't hear that from other parents, from my friends' kids, from my you know, I don't hear that about a group of kids often. But every parent that I speak to that is a military parent talks about the resiliency of their children. Tell me what it is that you think. And it's different for each family. What is it that creates that resiliency within a military child?
I think personally, I think it's kind of, I would say it's universal in a lot of military families I've met. And I think it was alluded to earlier, your family becomes like a core. Like this is your constant, and you know that you will always have each other and have each other's backs. So regardless of the situation that you're placed in or where you're put, I think most children in military families grow up with, all right, we're a team, we're doing this, we're moving, we're doing, you know, a deployment, we're doing whatever obstacle is coming our way, and we're doing it as a family. And I think they have a very strong understanding and foundation of things are maybe chaos all around me, but I have these constants in my life, and I can adapt to all those other things, knowing that I can touch home base and stay grounded, even when everything else is a whirlwind around me. And I think a lot of military kids get that confidence, like, okay, you know, this might not be my choice, but I know I have a strong foundation behind me. And so now we'll do our new journey together. And I think that's probably a big piece of the resiliency. And I think it's also on our part. I think a lot of military parents model that to their children and kind of emulate, yes, we are going here, or, you know, we are going to do this challenge, and they feed off of you and how you're responding to the situation. And that's not to say you can't ever be negative about something, but they also see how you handle that negativity too. And I think processing that helps them build up this resiliency to life challenges that they're going to face.
Great answer. Joe?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo exactly what Amber said there, because that's true, that my son and daughter have such a tight relationship because those are the two the two friend constants, right? It doesn't mean that they don't fight with each other. I mean, they're siblings, right? But there's that mutual respect and understanding that I got your back, right? And I think the whole resilience thing, they roll with the punches. They know schedules change. They know it's not, they don't get anxious about it. They don't get uptight about one little change because they've constantly lived through change. And so in constantly living through change, they're just like, yep, I got this. It's all going to work out in the end. This is the rough patch. It's okay. We'll get through this. And hearing them talk to their friends when they're going through, like teenagers do talk a lot. And my daughter is there as a coach for a lot of her friends, telling them it's okay. This is okay. take a deep breath. You've got this. You can handle this. You know, like go and write in a journal. Like they're doing all the tactics and the things that we've given them to cope with deployments, reintegration, relationships, and they're emulating that and echoing it back to their friends in the community. And so they just know that there's zero chance of things working out exactly as you envisioned them, but that's okay, because guess what? Maybe this is the path I need to be on.
Fantastic. Honestly, fantastic. I found both of what you said today. Number one, so fascinating, and I love learning about what it's like to raise kids in the military. But what I think is so important is that for individuals watching today who are not part of military families, the advice that you gave and the guidance that you gave and the lessons that you've learned are so relevant to just parenting in general too. So thank you for the wisdom. I certainly took away, you know, some practices that I might use on my own kids in this to teach them perhaps how to be more resilient. Maybe that change piece in particular, to be like, you need to roll with the punches a little bit more. Like it's okay to not be so rigid. So thank you. Thank you to both of you for joining us and for being so candid and honest. Anything else you want to add before we leave tonight and sign off?
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Great.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you, Amber, tonight.
Yeah, same.
I had a chance to meet you.
And thank you both for humoring me and joining me in the bathroom. I so appreciate it. I don't know about you, but it's I know, Joe, you're home by yourself right now, but with my two kids running around outside the door, it is literally the I had by myself without them today. So thank you to you both, and we will see everybody back here in 2 weeks talking about yet another military topic. So thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.